A year ago, I met a customer here, Andrew Wilson, the CIO of Accenture. And I was immediately struck by two things. One, struck by Andrew being the only CIO I met all year long that is literally taller than I am. But more importantly, he has bold and aggressive vision of the role of the CIO and how to transform an organization. And as you know, Accenture is a 400,000 person organization that provides consulting and technology services, and Andrew is the CIO. He's also, it's one of the most best practice implementations of ServiceNow I've seen. So an incredibly talented CIO who's implementing ServiceNow in a best practice way. So I'm thrilled that Andrew's here with us today. Once again, we'll roll a brief video that gives you a little bit of an outline. And then Andrew Wilson, Accenture CIO, will be joined by our very own Dave Schnieder, Chief Revenue Officer, for a conversation. So let's roll the video.
Accenture exists to drive transformational digital change into clients all over the world. We operate in 75% of the global 500 Fortune companies, helping them embrace all of these new technologies. Experience today is mission critical. It's a core part of why a customer wants to engage with your brand.
The response to the Experience Initiative at Accenture has been phenomenal. People really do see the pivot from corporate-focused design to employee-focused design. Often what happens at enterprises is they design around the corporate function needs. Experience pivots that focus to the employee.
We have our Accenture portal, which we call Accenture Support, and it's a single destination for you to get service and support for anything at Accenture. Now we can provide an end-to-end connected experience, hiding the complexity of our organization for our employees.
Leveraging the ServiceNow platform as our system of experience for business services is really helping us to wow the employee.
The way in which we communicate has changed. The way in which we deliver and provide services has changed. So cracking the code of digital transformation is a mindset shift. It's an ability to practice with these modern technologies and delivering things in a modern, agile way with a characteristic of fun as well.
Please welcome CIO from Accenture, Andrew Wilson, and Chief Revenue Officer of ServiceNow, David Schnieder.
Yo, check this out.
Wow. Morning, Dave.
Wow, it's an incredible
You brought
crowd.
some of your friends.
Well, you know, only 18,000 of my friends. So, Andrew, you know, it's interesting. We've had the opportunity to work together for a few years. And one of the things that I notice about you is your ability to lead and help really transform Accenture. Maybe you can give people a hint on how you approach your role as the CIO at Accenture.
Well, I think it starts when you wake up in the morning and realize that everything you did that made you successful as a CIO is no longer enough. And the dramatic change in the technology industry, in cloud, in automation, in analytics, moving ever faster means you have to completely redefine the skills that you need to be successful. And then there's that profound change outside of technology around the experience, an experience which is much more than the user interface. I look after 450,000 people. They're professionals in their own right. They expect a great experience. They need to deliver a great experience to our clients. So a digital transformation strategy really is in equal parts technology, talent, and change. So from a technology perspective, your table stakes have to be consume the new, consume the modern. So in Accenture, we're 90% in the cloud. We're powered by platforms like ServiceNow. We're some of the biggest instances of those platforms on the planet. And that will not get me to success. The next thing I have to do is make the team that look after that technology much more successful. So they have to have a set of new skills, deep skills in things that a few years ago didn't exist. data scientists, experience officers, and with an imagination and a design thinking that is a long way away from coding and building things in the data center. And then probably the biggest change of all is I've got to think in terms of outcomes. None of these services exist for the corporate enterprise, for the leaders or the deployers of that tech. They exist for the end user, for the customer, the citizen, the employee. And so we have to think in outcomes. And that outcome-based thinking is really easy to say and a complete change in the way services are provided. It's not a transaction processor, it's not a UI, it's not an interface on a website anymore. So I feel I've become the Chief Experience Officer. I think it's all around change in the organization. And then when you look at that experience, it's easy to think of experience as UI and great mobile, and that's table stakes. What John talks about is absolutely real. But how does an individual feel about the organization they serve or the organization that is trying to attract them as a customer? Where is the culture? Where's the behavioral existence? Where are the outcomes that are clearly thinking in the same dimension as the human? So a modern digital transformation strategy is all about the human. So we talk about truly human at work. And truly human is really important. And there's an irony in that in these days of ultra-fast technology, the human is at the heart of everything and is more important than ever before. And for my user base, it's about a great fun time at work. It's about attracting and retaining. It's about making the process of joining Accenture much more fluid. We have over 100,000 people join us a year. You can't be old-fashioned. You can't have them filling out forms. They've got to really want to be there. It's got to be really sticky. They've just come up from talking to Alexa. They've just come from watching YouTube. If the services at work don't feel like that, I'm not doing my job. And so I think that's where the Chief Experience Officer now sits. I think we're uniting the enterprise. So in the old days of corporate functions, one would have to navigate all of those functions to find your way around the enterprise. If we can unite the enterprise, Dave, then the Chief Experience Officer will be successful.
Well, it seems like it's half inspiration, right? So you're inspiring the functional areas to approach a new way of working in behalf of the employee. Tell me about that process of going after the lines of business or the people that were in those functions and how you worked with them to build experiences for employees.
Well, I think there's fiefdoms and egos. I think there's business processes which have defined the guide rails for the way the organization behaves. And then there's their policies and their procedures. You have to disrupt all of those. Don't think in terms of the system you're going to build. That's really the last step. Selection of the platform and a great experience is there. But if your culture and your business transformation aren't driving what you're doing, then really you're only putting a patch on things. And so that's why when I say experience and change management and Chief Transformation Officer, those are all skills a CIO didn't really used to have. The days of the data center, firewall, lockdown, coding, design, build, testing, and all of that. Foundational then, really important, cost savings and all of those things. Those themes are important, but now it's the new.
So, the other element that's interesting is you talk about platforms and ServiceNow being an experience platform. Can you tell me about how you define platforms and why platforms are important?
Platforms run the IT ecosystem today. So a CIO that has selected a number of platforms like ServiceNow that deliver, ideally, software as a service, that deliver rich functionality like Jakarta and London and Madrid, that really give you a lot of investment that you couldn't possibly make as an individual organization. So Accenture runs on a small number of big, famous facial platforms like ServiceNow and Microsoft. In many instances, we're the biggest in the world of those platforms. So I buy a lot of capability that my job is then to make the platforms work together, to integrate, plus cross-platform integration in cloud with cloud-native services, bit techy, but really important because now I'm brokering, I'm orchestrating, and I'm serving up change potential in the organization, and I'm consulting the organization. I have to consult the consultants who can be a feisty lot. But I've got to be able to deliver services and a much richer range of services through platforms and I couldn't do it before they existed.
And the key elements of an experience platform for you, why ServiceNow?
I think ServiceNow represents my experience architecture. So an architecture which we selected perhaps for some entry-level things, like ticketing, it's your history and your heritage, but what ServiceNow is successful at is not why we selected it in the first place. ServiceNow is delivering, in many cases, it's the first eyeballs, it's the platform of insight, it's that combination of the data lake, the intelligence. We talk about applying intelligence. So we surface things in an experience and with an interface that's helpful, that help people join, move about, take a temporary leave of absence, come back, communicate, collaborate. So platforms do that. They are the place in which we exist inside the enterprise now.
Well, so on that front, so you talked a little bit of examples of things that you're using outside of IT service management. Are you reaching customers as well as just employees?
Yes. The way Accenture can effectively deploy through demand and supply, the way Accenture communicates and collaborates with our customer. And we were federated with hundreds of organizations. Accenture is a sticky, real-time, human, and agile workforce. And when we talk about workforce, by the way, I don't just mean the humans anymore. I'm talking about the automation. So we have tens of thousands of non-human workers, and they exist alongside our human workforce, and they have to complement each other. You know, perhaps the Chief Experience Officer becomes, in part, the HR officer for the non-human workers. You know, how do we present that in a seamless way? So my team has to be there to make the Accenture team work, integrate, and help our clients and through them to their markets as well.
So one of the things in observing Accenture's communication strategies inside about technology rollouts, you've done a really amazing job of leaning in to over-communicate the reasons why and how. Maybe you can explain some of the mechanisms that you're using to reach your employees and partners.
Shut down websites, shut down email. No one will look at them and no one will go near them. Use television, because YouTube and Netflix are the way our post-millennial workforce communicates. That's how we consume knowledge in our lives. So we are 75% millennial, so we are young. We're young in a way that the average workforce in the world hasn't achieved yet. So I want to be able to offer live television shows. I want to talk about the change. I want to make it fun, interactive. I want our security training to be like the TV show 24, where we drop a season and people play it on replay. I want to be able to create interfaces that will react to words, so we have deeper HR personality that we're raising and growing that will increasingly allow us to understand our options for HR policies. HR is a great place to start with experience. I think the relationship between the HR and leadership officer and the CIO in the organization is one of, if not the most critical in the modern enterprise world. So use techniques like that and have fun and raise and develop them. And again, that's a very different persona to the old days.
So I agree with all of that. Now, if you could give advice to this room of people who are somewhere on their journey, their transformation, they may be a mid-level person driving to change their organization and they're looking for sponsorship, how would you ask them or look to them to inspire you as their leader if they were working inside your organization?
Understand your role and qualify it in the organization. Do you have the right to be the Chief Digital Officer, the Chief Experience Officer? Find the talent and the providers and the ecosystem partners like ServiceNow and Accenture who can augment your skills, who can give you access to technologies and skills that you can't build and grow because things are moving too quickly. Employ data scientists. Employ individuals who can complement the automation that isn't replacing people. Automation isn't changing the number of jobs available, but it is changing the content of the jobs. So have a plan for the talent, the technology, the change management, and then the communication and the fun as well. And if you've got those pillars in place, you'll be a successful CIO, Chief Transformation Officer, or Chief Experience Officer.
That's great. Well, we could talk all day, but I think the show needs to go on. So I just want to say thank you very much for being here. Truly appreciate everything that you do for us.
Thank you. Thank you.
So Andrew, as I said earlier, you are, in many ways, I think, embody what the CIO of the future is. And you are transforming not only Accenture, transforming IT. And I can honestly say, we both literally and figuratively look up to you. So how about
I get that a lot. But
one more big round of applause for Andrew Wilson. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. It was awesome. Thank you.